Senator Baldacci, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Well, it's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yes, it is election season.
Yes.
And the state is facing a couple of big questions in terms of, state referendum questions on the ballot. And so the first one, of course, has to do with changes to how Maine does absentee voting.
Mm-hmm.
And first, I guess the question to start off with is, as they stand now, do you feel that Maine elections are secure?
I feel that they're very secure. I think that the record shows that. I think we've taken a number of steps over the last 5 to 6 years to improve that security. Whenever there are recounts, they usually come out, they are observed by members of both parties. There have been times when they have had to recount the recounts. So I think that this state, and I'm not speaking of other states, but I think Maine itself is very meticulous in making sure they're secure. It doesn't mean that there aren't mistakes or problems being made, but overall, yes, it's a very secure election.
The question one has arisen, and for some additional background, back in 2011, Charlie Summers, the last Republican Secretary of State, commissioned a study on election security. That study found no widespread fraud and found that Maine elections were in fact secure, as you just alluded to. Do you feel there have been any shifts in security or any concerns that might have given birth to this potential call for change?
No, I think if anything, our elections are even more secure because of trying to keep up with technology, and also because I think the practice of people in both parties has been to respect the process. So I think that we are fortunate, really, in this state versus many other states, of having a secure process that's respected by the vast majorities of both parties, and when there's an issue, that we work on it in a way that it resolves it fairly.
It's been said, it's been calculated that 45% of Maine voters actually use absentee voting. So if passed, how, in your view, does this measure and the proposed changes affect that 45% of voters?
Well, it will have a huge impact.
Yeah.
I think many of the people that are absentee voting are seniors, disabled, people who are away for whatever reason from their homes because of work or because of other commitments.
Military service.
Military service, exactly. So I think that this would have a huge negative impact on our elections without any real change or improvement in so-called security.
Yeah. Do you worry that this could actually result in voter suppression?
Oh, absolutely, because you're going to have, if 45% are voting absentee and then we make it extremely hard for them, that's a huge segment of the population that's going to be discouraged from going to the polls at all.
I want to shift our conversation to question two, the second state referendum question pertaining to the possible implementation of a red flag law in the state of Maine. Does Maine's current yellow flag law, in your view, do enough to protect people from the threat of gun violence?
So I am one of the few Democrats that's actually opposing this referendum. So Representative Perkins and I would have the same position in opposing this. I think the yellow flag law was carefully worked on by the Sportsmen's Alliance of Maine, along with the current administration and the legislature, and I think that it is working satisfactorily and is a better tool. If we pass the red flag law, I'm concerned about the duplication of having both of these laws in effect, and also about what's going to happen in court with whether this particular red flag law would make it easier to take away weapons on scanty evidence with less than probable cause, most likely. And I think that the yellow flag law, where it's vetted by law enforcement, is a better tool, both for law enforcement and for protecting people's rights, firearm rights.
But this bill does also have the caveat that the respondent can request an early termination of the extreme risk order. If someone has abused the proposed law, does that termination do enough to protect the respondent's rights?
No, I don't think so, because you're already catching them up in litigation. I like the current yellow flag law because of what I said, but also it strikes a balance. I expressed a lot of concerns even about the yellow flag, the governor's proposal, because my concern is about constitutional rights. But the yellow flag law is sufficient to achieve the purposes we want. It needs to be, law enforcement and the public need to be better educated about it, and the utilization in the last 2 years since the tragedy in Lewiston has been enormous.
Yeah.
And I don't have the exact numbers, but I think over 1,000 firearms have been confiscated from dangerous people based on affidavits from law enforcement.
Yeah.
I think it's working sufficiently to protect the public.
Do you feel the yellow flag law has any shortcomings that should be addressed?
No, not in terms of public safety. I think it's doing its job. I think the only, as I said, I think just educating the public and educating law enforcement better about this tool needs to be a continuing process.
Okay. Opponents of the proposal argue that the law would put family members and law enforcement personnel at risk. It sounds like you're kind of that mind.
Yeah. Well, I think that it's really going to cause some legal problems when we have both of these laws in effect.
Yeah.
I think the courts will be distracted from the major issues, and I do think the yellow flag law is working well and has a good filter in terms of through law enforcement.
And the final question I want to get to, this election, it may not be as major as others that we'll see, the previous election and of course the upcoming midterms, but certainly there may be sort of information or trends to be gleaned from this election as well. How do you think this election could sort of foretell what may happen in the midterms? What are you looking out for here?
Well, I think some of what we're looking out for is to see what the current attitude of the public is to the current administration. Oftentimes, the administration suffers some setbacks in these midterm or off-year elections. There's been a lot of anger about certain issues, SNAP, budget, Medicaid. I could go through a long list, but so I think it gives us a barometer on the public's feelings and the public's attitudes towards what's going on.
Even with these state referendum questions, I mean, I would think the attitude towards absentee voting and, gun control is always an issue. So, even with these two state referendum questions,
well,
I
think question one, I think question one particularly will be helpful in terms of giving us a barometer on people's attitudes, because certainly the yes on one people are largely the people who have gone around and said that there's problems with our security. I mean, I've served on the State and Local Government Committee for the last 5 years, which oversees the Secretary of State's office. I've chaired it for 4 years. We've added significant additional money to security issues there. I have vetted a bunch of election-related complaints from people, and they've all been really unfounded, even by the Republican members of the legislature. So I think it's something that is not needed.
Okay. Is there anything you'd like to add in the few remaining seconds that we have about any thoughts you might have on this election?
No, I think it's a very important election. We all need to go out and vote. Next year is going to be extremely important because of the governor's race and the U.S. Senate race and the Congress race. But it's important that we protect the right to vote, and that's why voting against question one is very important. Okay. It will help protect our basic small d democratic rights.
All right. Well, Senator Baldacci, thank you so much for joining us.
It's always a pleasure.
We appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Always a pleasure.
Yeah.
See you.